Well, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, as the case may be. Thank you for joining us at this Infoblox webinar. Appreciate you carving out some time in your day to listen and watch what we're going to present. This webinar is about NIOS 8.3, upgrading to it and upgrading to next level networking. I'm one of your presenters. My name is David Vineski. I work in marketing on the DDI products. DDI, of course, is DNS, DHCP, and IP address management. And I'm going to be joined by Krupa Srivatsal. She works in product marketing for our security products. I'm going to spend a little time on that. If you're a present Infoblox customer, we'll show you some of the reasons you might want to consider upgrading from your current version of NIOS to 8.3. If you're a prospect for Infoblox, this will show you some of the things that you will enjoy if you come on board as a customer with NIOS 8.3. And if you're a competitor who's sunk in, well, take a look at our roadmap. And these are some things that you can copy if you like. As we go through this, we will be taking questions through the Q&A box, and at the end of our webinar, we will answer the questions as best we can. If we can't, we will certainly get back to you. And we will also be circulating a copy of this presentation to all the attendees. So with no further ado, let's just get started. Very short introduction to Infoblox. For those of you who don't know us, kind of what are we about beyond DDI? Well, Infoblox really is about bringing networks to the next level of security, the next level of reliability, and the next level of automation for any sort of environment, cloud networks, on-premises, hybrid, what have you. And we believe that's all should be managed through a single pane of glass. That is our ethos. And kind of how do we do that? Well, we do that in many ways. Well, one of the things we do is we invest consistently or relentlessly in NIOS. NIOS is what we're all about, and we want to make it the most capable, most efficient, most secure network operating system possible. So when it comes to 8.3, NIOS 8.3, why would you want it? Why would you want to upgrade to it? There are many, many reasons. Not the least of which are dozens of customer requests, enhancements that have been implemented in NIOS 8.3. Well, we're going to emphasize here 5 key categories of enhancements in 5.3, and we'll spend a fair bit of time on each. The first is greater cloud readiness with DNS forwarding proxy. Software ADP has been extended to more appliances for, as I mentioned, next level reliability. Also extensions to our government cloud support. This is important, obviously, in the government market. We'll talk a little bit about that. And reasons 4 and 5 are about automation. Automating network services using the Ansible tool. We'll have a little background on Ansible if you're not familiar. As well as automating network services through Kubernetes. We'll do a little background on that as well as the actual function. So with no further ado, let me turn it over to Krupa, who will talk about cloud readiness with DNS forwarding proxy.
Awesome. Thanks, David. So as David mentioned, I lead marketing for all the security products here at Infoblox. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the new capabilities that we've added to the NIOS platform that David mentioned earlier, right? Number one thing to think about when you think about security is this fact that there is, DNS is one of those often forgotten network assets that can be used to improve security in your organization, right? Most malware uses DNS at some point in its life cycle to connect with the command and control sites. Data exfiltration more often than not happens via DNS. And for those of you who are not familiar with our solutions, we do offer a DNS layer security that can be deployed and enforced on premises or through our cloud service, which is a pure subscription-based SaaS service. So with the latest NIOS 8.3 release, we now are tightly integrated with the on-premise platform and the Infoblox ActiveTrust Cloud, which is the SaaS-based DNS security solution I talked about. And what this gives, gives the users is this fully integrated hybrid approach to securing the DNS layer, right? Using DNS to block malware communications, using DNS to block data exfiltration, and also gathering a lot of the data that DNS, DHCP, and IPAM provides for your forensics and for your threat incident response. You can do a lot of those capabilities with ActiveTrust and ActiveTrust Cloud. The way the on-premise platform NIOS is connected with the ActiveTrust Cloud is through what's called the DNS forwarding proxy. And what this does is it automatically, if you have Infoblox Grid with 8.3 running on-prem, automatically you have the capability to route your DNS queries to ActiveTrust Cloud through this forwarding proxy if you choose to purchase ActiveTrust Cloud as well. And what that does is when devices come onto into your network, into the corporate network, and if you have ActiveTrust Cloud, and the DNS forwarding proxy will route the DNS queries to the ActiveTrust Cloud solution where all the security policies are applied. So it'll check for malicious communications to bad sites using threat intelligence feeds. It'll check for data exfiltration and other advanced threats like DGA and FastFlux using our advanced behavioral analytics. And you get a lot more capabilities in terms of threat investigation and threat hunting. The advantage of having this DNS forwarding proxy integrated into our NIOS platform is that now you don't have to have additional endpoint agents deployed on your devices, or you don't have to have separate virtual machines running this forwarding proxy software to access the cloud service. It's integrated into the platform, and there's no additional configuration that is needed from the customer side. As I mentioned, some of the benefits of ActiveTrust Cloud: blocking CNC communications, data exfiltration, content categorization. So that's another thing to think about, is you can actually block access to certain types of content at the DNS level and not necessarily have to use like a web proxy or web gateway solution. And a DNS is a more scalable, cost-effective way to do this type of content filtering as opposed to doing it in some of the other security technologies. We also provide a lot in terms of threat intel distribution. You can use the threat intelligence and threat intel data that we have on our platform in not just Infoblox solutions, but also in other security solutions you may be using today, let's say a Palo Alto firewall or a SIEM, right? This way you're actually getting better ROI from those investments that you already made in other security tools. So the way the DNS forwarding proxy works is, as I mentioned, if you're not Infoblox customers, you can still use it using a separate virtual machine running the forwarding proxy. In that case, the forwarding proxy will then route the queries to the ActiveTrust Cloud. But if you are Infoblox customers, upgrade to NIOS 8.3 and you get that integrated forwarding capability as well. Again, that eliminates the need for a separate virtual machine. The forwarding proxy also encrypts and embeds the client identity, so you don't lose visibility of the actual endpoint that is making that malicious communication or trying to exfiltrate data. The forwarding proxy will capture that information and forward it to the ActiveTrust Cloud. So you see in your reporting, you have exactly information about which device is making the communication, which device is trying to exfiltrate data. You don't lose any information about the actual end client. On-premise Infoblox also integrates with Microsoft AD. So if you do have that, then you get information about the logged in user. So you get the username that's associated with that device as well. And any DNS resolution to local DNS zones is directly done, conditionally forwarded to that local zone. So really great capabilities, and even better when it's integrated with on-premises Infoblox, especially with NIOS 8.3. And it also gives you this really hybrid approach to securing your devices. You could have on-premises ActiveTrust to protect your devices on-prem. You could use ActiveTrust Cloud to protect your roaming users and your remote offices. And with this integrated hybrid approach, you get unified reporting, one dashboard to manage all of these devices and activities. Even as they move between on-premises and roaming states, you get one complete life cycle view. And with the on-premises grid, you get deep visibility. You get information about the actual endpoint devices, things like MAC address, device type, where it is in the network, what has it been doing in the past. There's IPAM or IP address management and DHCP fingerprinting has a lot of forensic information that can help in identifying these devices and remediation. So really great hybrid approach is something that we highly recommend with this on-premise and cloud infrastructure working together as an integrated solution. The second reason from a security perspective to upgrade to NIOS 8.3 would be our capability that we've added for supporting advanced DNS protection in other higher-end appliances. So I'll talk about a little bit about that in the next slide. But when you think about DDoS attacks, there are several types of DDoS attacks, but DNS-based DDoS attacks like amplification and reflection are increasingly the #1 growing attack vector, right? DNS is the #1 targeted service for application layer attacks. As you can see here, it's 81% of all application layer attacks are DNS-based. 94% of all amplification attacks are DNS-based. You'd have heard of the Dyn attacks that happened in the fall of 2016. That was a DNS-based attack as well that brought down the whole infrastructure of Dyn, and with it, all the client websites that Dyn was hosting. So increasingly, DNS is one of these attack vectors that you need protection against. And the generic DDoS providers, while they may offer partial protection against some of these higher volume attacks, they do not offer protection for all DNS-based attacks like exploits, protocol anomalies, some of these lower volume attacks. They do not offer protection because they don't understand the DNS protocol as much as a dedicated DNS solution would understand. So that's where software advanced DNS protection comes into the picture. It provides that next level reliability even when your network is under a DDoS attack, right? What it does is the software ADP is built into the DNS server, and it provides an attack protection to keep the services up and running even under an attack. It offers protection not just for external authoritative DNS servers that are facing the internet, but you also increasingly we see DDoS attacks happening from within the network. Let's say an infected endpoint, infected with some malware, is launching 1 million DNS queries a second on your internal DNS. That can affect performance, that can affect reliability. And software advanced DNS protection offers protection for those implementations as well. Attacks keep evolving. So obviously you want to make sure that your solution, any solution you use, stays up to date. And the software ADP has those threat rules that are constantly updated, signatures are constantly updated for new types of attacks that we detect in the wild. And that makes sure that your DNS server is keeping pace with the evolving attacks as well. Obviously provides a lot of visibility in terms of what types of attacks are attacking the network, where it's happening, which parts of the network you're getting attacked in, and things like that. And the other important thing is the software ADP solution not just blocks the attacks, but it also notifies your other ecosystem tools. Let's say your vulnerability scanners or your SIEM solutions, that there is some attack going on the network. That gives you better visibility, and that enables customers to do broad range network remediation against these attacks as well. So in terms of the actual support for the different appliances that Infoblox has to offer, with NIOS 8.3, we've added more higher-end appliances. We added support for those higher-end appliances like the 2215, 2225, 1415, 1425. So if you have any of those higher-end appliances and you want to get this DNS protection, attack protection, you don't have to rip and replace those boxes with hardware boxes that have DDoS protection built in. We actually have the software version of the DNS protection now available for those higher-end appliances as well. So you can leverage your existing Infoblox investment without needing to replace that hardware. Again, we offer flexible deployment options. If you do prefer physical appliances with the ADP built in, we offer that as well. But if you want to just add it on as a software to your existing Infoblox appliances, you can do that as well. And it doesn't matter whether you choose the software version or the hardware version, you get performance parity in both options. So with the 8.3, we now support all of our Infoblox appliances with the software advanced DNS protection option as well. So those are some of the key reasons from a security perspective why upgrading to our latest platform is a good thing. You get these the cloud readiness, and you get this integration with the RackToTrust Cloud security solution, and you get this software advanced DNS protection for all your DNS appliances, irrespective of the model that you may own today. All right, so that's from a security perspective. Now I'm going to hand it back to David to talk about some of the networking enhancements that we've made with the NIOS 8.3. David, back to you.
Thank you, Krupa. That's great. Let me just step ahead a slide here. So for the back half of this presentation, I'm going to hopscotch around a little bit to 3 different subjects. I hope you'll find at least one of them interesting. So let's start here. It's no secret, I think, to most people on this call, shouldn't be a secret to most people on this call, that government and government agencies are taking great interest in the cloud. Some are exploring, some are beginning to move workloads, and some are committing to spending very large dollars on the cloud. Now, the ultimate course, destination, and volume is really anybody's guess. A lot of prognostications about this, and analysts are making good money telling us where the world is going. But I think the trend, I think we'll agree that the trend is clear, that government agencies are moving towards the cloud. So quite a while ago, at least 2 or 3 releases ago in NIOS, we added support for Amazon Web Services GovCloud. That is supporting the ability to deploy our DDI solution within the AWS GovCloud. And with NIOS 8.3, we've now added support for Microsoft Azure GovCloud. We are the only DDI vendor that is certified to support multiple government cloud solutions. Our strategy for doing this is pretty obvious. Customers can and want flexibility. They deserve choice. There will be a choice in GovCloud between at least Microsoft and AWS and probably others in the future. So we need to follow that, and we are. So that is the reason we've added Microsoft Azure GovCloud to our AWS option. And if a new solution, if a new government cloud solution appears that's of interest, we'll consider adding that support as well. If you want to truly be certified to support GovCloud solutions, you do have to follow this alphabet soup you see at the bottom of certifications: NIST, DISA, DIPS, FedRAMP. We are either on board for all of those certifications with Microsoft Azure, as we are right now with AWS, or will be very shortly. So it is our strategy. It is our policy to again offer choice and be fully compatible with these government cloud solutions. So if this is a market for you, or if you are a government agency yourself, please take note of our direction. Now I've got to move on to something a little bit different. This is automation. It has long been an Infoblox strategy to help automate the data center when it comes to DDI services. Automating DDI services or core network services within the data center saves time, reduces errors, accelerates deployment. All in all, it makes life more efficient. So we do that automation by integrating DDI, our DDI solution, with various tools. One of the tools that we've just added with NIOS 8.3 is Ansible. If you're not familiar with Ansible, and some may be very and some may not, let me give you just a quick tutorial on what Ansible is. Ansible is rooted in open source. That today it's a configuration tool. If you're familiar with Chef or Puppet, it is in that same class of products. It configures, it allows deployment, orchestration of IT infrastructure. Ansible used to be a company unto itself, but it is now part of Red Hat. So when I talk about Red Hat or talk about Ansible, it is actually a brand that is part of Red Hat Inc. What does Ansible do? It manages, I say here, disparate platforms. What does that mean? That means servers, it means storage, it means literally anything in the data center. And what makes it unique and different and advantageous is that it doesn't require, Ansible does not require you to put software agents onto any managed device. Instead of agent software, it uses SSH, which exists on most devices today. So it's a lot easier to deploy. What also makes Ansible interesting, and what contributed to its popularity, was it doesn't use cryptic code, it doesn't use cryptic languages, and doesn't require you to take special courses to actually program. It uses YAML, which most human beings can read straight away, and you build it into what's called a playbook or a role. That's an Ansible term, and it lets you get automating very quickly. So the fact that it doesn't use agents and it uses a human-readable language, it lets you automate the entire data center cheaply and rapidly. And again, we're noting Ansible does encompass pretty much the entirety of IT infrastructure, including networking resources. And when I talk about networking resources, that would obviously include us, because with NIOS 8.3, we now support an IPAM integration with Ansible. So this is an interesting step forward, particularly if you're using Ansible today or if you're considering using Ansible at some point in the future. So thank you for bearing with me. There is a fairly compressed little diagram over on the left-hand side that's meant to kind of show the connectivity and functionality. Again, it's small, but it is complete. So you see over on the left-hand side, NIOS devices connecting to, in the middle there, the Ansible stack, and that kind of from the bottom up, it's Ansible Engine, which is actual connectivity, the connectivity locale, and that's where the integration module sits. In the middle is Ansible Tower, and on top sits the playbook, which is what users can program. And Ansible talks to, looking from top to bottom, networking devices, servers, either physical or virtual, and storage, amongst other things. So how does all this thing work? NIOS, running on a Trinsic device, either physical or virtual, will publish TDI information. So again, DHCP, DNS, and IP records to Ansible. Within a playbook, you can automate management of all of those things. So all network services can now be managed from a playbook, just as a playbook today manages servers or storage. And this integration now we support in 8.3 allows kind of one-stop shopping, if you will, for automation across the data center, across clouds of infrastructure as well as DDI. What's in it for you? Makes service deployment quicker, makes the network more efficient. It increases reliability by reducing errors. And if you currently have Ansible today, if you have skills or an investment in Ansible, all of that is leveraged straight away. You don't have to learn anything new to automate DDI services. There is a solution note on the infoblox.com website. If you want to see some more of the specifics, and I can depict in this little tiny diagram here. So that is available to you. And if you're interested in getting the Ansible integration, you can get it two places. One is on the famous GitHub, where so many great things reside, or you can get it directly from Ansible. So it is available there. Now let me move on to another open source topic, and that is Kubernetes. Kubernetes, at the risk of getting a little bit nerdy, but for those who are interested, kind of important. What is Kubernetes? A little background. So it too is open source. Although whereas Ansible was based on open source and now is owned by Red Hat, Kubernetes was and is an open source orchestration tool. But Kubernetes is focused on managing containers, and the most popular container and the most well-known is Docker. Why does Kubernetes exist? Well, it exists to reduce the tedium associated with deploying and scaling out and scaling down containerized applications. And containerized applications are growing in popularity particularly with cloud-native applications. That's not its only spot, but that is a sweet spot today. With NIOS 8.3, we now support a CNI, or Common Network Interface IPAM plugin for Kubernetes. So if you see a little common thread between Ansible and Kubernetes, it's about integration and automation. Here it is. And what does this plugin do? Similar to Ansible, this automates IP address management, or using some container terms, pods and containers that are deployed through by Kubernetes and then through NIOS. And then to get really down into the functions, this plugin also supports some of the most important network drivers that are inherent to Kubernetes, such as bridge and IP VLAN, and as well as the macro VLAN. So this is here in 8.3. So here I have a slightly more visible functional diagram of how NIOS over here on the right-hand side with the Infoblox grid notation connects to Kubernetes. So within the entirety of Kubernetes, you can see at the bottom there is the Infoblox installer, which installs the plugin library. If you follow the arrows up, and ultimately the Infoblox connector daemon, that's what talks to the Infoblox grid, if you're so inclined. What all this does, though, is it automatically and rapidly scales out the container resources. That's Kubernetes' job. And then the plugin associated plus NIOS scales out the network resources. Again, DHCP, DNS, and IP address management all in one. So this particular plugin is available. It's free of charge. It is also sitting on GitHub if you want to go get it, if you're interested in playing with it. And it's also available at infoblox.com through our community support portal. So it's there if you're a Kubernetes and Docker user, right there for your use. So before we go to our questions and answers, let me just talk about some of the things you might want to do next. If you're interested, you can download Active Trust Cloud, the eval copy. When we send out this presentation, these are live links, so you can take a look at how DNS how it helps DNS security and reduce the risks associated with data theft and malware. You can also give software ADP a try. Our solution note that I mentioned before for Ansible, that's available by just double-clicking on this link. And then if you happen to be an Ansible user today and you are interested in programming Ansible, we will be attending and exhibiting at the Ansible event called Ansible Fest at the beginning of October in Austin, Texas. Beginning of October in Austin, it will be warm, but Austin is a fun town, and this is going to be a pretty interesting event for those of you who are Ansible users. So with that, do we have any questions?
Yeah, so I think we're getting a lot of good questions, Dave, on the Q&A window. So let's go to the first one. 8.3 adds a lot of new and important features, as you can see, but do we have any training available yet for this version? So I don't know, David, if you have the answer to that.
We don't have training for, we don't have an umbrella training for 8.3 in total, but we do have training for a number of the components. We have training. Well, speaking to those that I'm most familiar with, we do have training available now for the Ansible integration. We are readying training for AWS GovCloud support. That's harder to say than it seems. That will be available shortly. And Kubernetes, not so much. Kubernetes is actually a community-supported tool. So we are contributing to that, and we are monitoring that, but we are not offering a training element on the Kubernetes plugin.
Okay. Very good. So there are a couple of security questions which I think I can answer. So do we have to open ports for off-network endpoints, or does it connect to the cloud? So I'm assuming this question is about using the ActiveTrust Cloud, and do they need to do anything for off-network endpoints to access the security service? So for off-network endpoints, you would need to have the endpoint agent installed, ActiveTrust endpoint agent installed on those devices, so that, let's say the user is working from Starbucks or from home, the endpoint agent will then route his DNS queries to ActiveTrust Cloud where the security is being applied. If you're talking about off-network in the sense of like a remote office or a branch office, there are a couple of options. You could have the forwarding proxy installed on a VM there in the remote offices to route the queries to ActiveTrust Cloud, or you could still use endpoint agents in those remote offices and branch offices. So again, it depends on where those off-network endpoints are when they're coming online. The other question was, how many locations and where is ActiveTrust Cloud hosted? So ActiveTrust Cloud has a global presence. We have points of presence in Eastern United States, Western United States, Ireland, in Europe, Frankfurt, Singapore, and Japan. So with those locations, we pretty much cover most of the regions in the world. So again, there is a global presence with ActiveTrust Cloud. Let's take another one. So here's one around 8.3 in general. Has 8.3 been tested with the customer infrastructure, or is this release available to Infoblox customers? We want the ActiveTrust Cloud support. We're just looking for a stable release. So absolutely. So 8.3 is a GA release. It is available to Infoblox customers to upgrade today. So it's not like a beta release, or it's not like a dot release. It's a major release that we just GA'd recently. So it's definitely stable. You can definitely use ActiveTrust Cloud with that release. I don't know, David, if you wanted to add anything to the 8.3.
No, only that it was announced at the end of June. So it has been out there now for about 6-7 weeks. So it is very much a real release of the product.
All right. So there was a question about GitHub. What's the URL to your GitHub repository?
Let me get back to you on that one. I have that in an email, but I'm loath to try to bring up email now and break my connection.
Sure. So let me take another question while you're doing that, David. I think there was a question about software ADP. Is it supported as running on virtual appliance in Azure? So yeah, software ADP can run on physical or virtual appliances. It doesn't matter. And if you have Infoblox virtual appliances running on Azure, software ADP will run on that as well. So again, we are agnostic in terms of the hardware or software, virtual, physical, doesn't matter. Software ADP will run on it. What exactly do you support in the clouds? So I'm assuming you're talking about the ActiveTrust Cloud. And what we do is we do the DNS-based firewall capability in ActiveTrust Cloud, so basically blocking DNS lookups to known bad destinations using our PZ functionality. We also do data exfiltration via DNS. We can block that. We do a combination of reputation and signature-based analytics to detect data exfiltration that is happening via DNS queries. Again, we do that in ActiveTrust Cloud. We also offer what's called TIDE, or Threat Intelligence Data Exchange. And what that does is it's our threat intel platform, which can be leveraged to push threat intel data into ActiveTrust Cloud, but also that same threat intel data can be pushed to other security platforms like IPS or proxies or firewalls or SIEMs. So it's kind of like a threat intel platform in the cloud as well, and that's available as part of ActiveTrust Cloud. We also offer threat investigation with a tool called Dossier. And what that does is it allows you to enter a threat indicator like a host name or IP or a URL, and it'll give you information about that particular indicator by gathering that information from dozens of sources. So what that means is your security analyst doesn't have to go to 12 different sources or 100 different sources on the internet to get all this information about that malicious URL or host name. It's all aggregated into one Google-like search tool, and you get that information. So it really speeds up threat investigation as well. So all of these capabilities are available with ActiveTrust Cloud, and it's basically securing your DNS control point.
Krupa, let me interject. Just in case that question was related to GovCloud support, just like a quick stab at an answer here.
Yep.
What our GovCloud support does is it allows you to deploy our DDI solution as a virtual appliance, either in AWS GovCloud or in Azure GovCloud. So quite simply, a Trinsic virtual device can be deployed within either of those government clouds, and the entirety of our DDI solution can then be rolled out to government agency customers and users within that agency.
Perfect. Another question on 8.3, does 8.3 offer granular user rights yet?
Yes, it does.
All right. There's another question, how is the integration with APIs? So in general, right, so Infoblox platforms are all based on like this open API platforms. We have a lot of public APIs that customers can take advantage of from a security and a DDI perspective. From a security perspective, you can pull security event information using our public APIs that are available with ActiveTrust Cloud. And what you can do is you can put that information into, you can put the security information into your SIEM or into vulnerability scanner. So let's say we detect something malicious with ActiveTrust Cloud. You can use those APIs to pull that data when you block something bad, and then you can tell the vulnerability scanner to go scan the device when something malicious is detected by ActiveTrust Cloud. So there are a lot of these use cases that you can do using APIs with the Infoblox platform. I know, David, if you had a DDI perspective on the API platform.
Well, everything you said is true. As a matter of fact, our open RESTful APIs, that's the reason we were able to create rather quickly our integration with Ansible. And that's probably one of the reasons we're the only DDI vendor that has an integration with the Ansible tool today. So our strategy to use and adhere to open APIs allows us to have the rather extensive ecosystem we have with partners.
All right, great. So there's a question around how the product can improve compliance and risk management. So there are a couple of ways to think about compliance, or a couple of ways that the Infoblox platform can improve compliance. One is the DNS, DHCP, and IPAM. There's a lot of audit trail and a lot of historical data that's available in your DNS, DHCP, and IPAM solution today, right? So just in terms of having that audit trail, a historical audit trail that you can refer to when for your compliance reporting, that's available with the DNS, DHCP, and IPAM solution. So that's one aspect. The second one is, let's say you are in a regulated industry, and you need to make sure that your data, your customer data, patient data, whatever it is that you need to protect, needs to be protected, DNS is one of the ways that data can be exfiltrated. And if you want to improve your posture against data theft, then an Active Trust or Active Trust Cloud solution can help you achieve that data compliance because you're now securing the DNS layer against data theft. So that's another way to think about how Infoblox solution can help with compliance when it comes to data protection and data security. Visibility and asset management, some regulations require that you know what assets are on your network at all times. And with the IPAM database that Infoblox provides, it is that single source of truth of all network connected devices, right? Because any network connected devices needs an IP address, and that's in the IP database. So that can help in terms of just asset discovery and asset management. That may be part of some of the regulations. All right. Maybe we do a couple of more. What else is needed other than NIOS 8.3 to get the cloud integration built in? So I guess this is a question about Active Trust Cloud. So if you upgrade to NIOS 8.3, as I mentioned, the DNS forwarding proxy comes built in. And what else is needed is just the Active Trust Cloud subscription. And with the NIOS on-prem and the Active Trust Cloud subscription, you now have that connectivity to the cloud-based security service. So that's all that's needed. There's a question about federal certifications, David. Maybe you can take this one. When will the federal certifications be ready?
We half and half. Half of them are done today. The second half we're waiting on the wheels of government to grind, and of course they grind at their pace, not ours. But we expect everything to be completed by fall, by autumn.
All right, great. There's a question about implementation being available in Latin America. So I'm assuming this is the question about having a point of presence for Active Trust Cloud in Latin America. So currently, the closest would be the Eastern United States, the Western United States, but we do have in the roadmap requirements to put a point of presence in other regions as well. So Latin America is definitely in consideration. It's not available today, though. There's a question about the Ansible integration cost, David. So what does the Ansible integration cost and who supports it?
Okay. One question. I'll give you one question with two answers. There are two versions of the Ansible integration. The version that you can download off of GitHub costs nothing, and it is supported by the open source community. We actually monitor that, and if we see issues, we work with Ansible/Red Hat to fix them. Alternatively, Ansible in their latest version, I should say Red Hat, in their latest version of Ansible, the latest version of Ansible Enterprise, they added support for this integration. So if you choose to license the Ansible integration from directly from Ansible, you can get enterprise level support. So the short answer is, if it's Ansible Enterprise, they support it. If it's the free version, it's community supported. I cannot quote Ansible price. Oh, Kubernetes? Same question?
Yeah, so Kubernetes, is that available and is it free? Who supports it? I think that was the other question.
It's available today. It's available on GitHub as well as our site. Kubernetes, because it's rooted in open source and it is not a sold product as the Ansible integration is today, that is supported by the open source community completely. That is something we monitor as well, and we will address issues that we can fix as quickly as we can. But again, as an open source tool, we toe the line on open source and let that community do what it does very well.
All right. There's one more. Is the Ansible plugin aimed at DevOps environments?
Good question. Ansible's roots were first set down in the development environment and the DevOps environment, but it has grown far beyond that. DevOps is clearly a place where Ansible is used today, but we are noticing in true production environments, it is getting a lot of traction. It is just growing naturally because of the inherent advantages, the speed and ability and rapid ability to program. It is being adopted in production environments, and part of that is actually being driven by its ability to support the network infrastructure. So no, it's not aimed at DevOps environments. It's used there, but it's being used really everywhere right now, which is one of the reasons we thought it was important to support.
All right, great. So maybe we'll do just one more. How will ActiveTrust Cloud protect users when they're using public Wi-Fi? So that's a great question. So this is your classic roaming user use case where you may have employees working from home or from Starbucks or using some sort of public Wi-Fi. Again, in those situations, you would need an endpoint agent, and that endpoint agent will then route the DNS queries to ActiveTrust Cloud, and then all the security is applied there before the DNS queries are routed, right? So, this is a classic use case for cloud-based or SaaS-based DNS security offering, and you definitely want to make sure that your users are protected when they're roaming. Not everybody, uses VPN anymore, right? So it's one of those technologies that's kind of dying, and which means that their devices are exposed, which means that they could go to malicious sites, download something, some malware inadvertently, and then come back to the office the next day, and now they brought their infected device into the corporate network. So definitely a classic use case for a SaaS-based solution like ActiveTrust Cloud. All right, so I think with that, we are at the end of the Q&A section. I think we've answered most of the questions, and just wanted to wrap up and thank everybody for joining this webinar. As always, we are here to answer your questions even after the webinar is concluded. So obviously, reach out to Infoblox if you still have any other unanswered questions. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today.
Thank you.